You are living in the most powerful age humanity has ever known. In your hand is a small glowing rectangle that can feed you, guide you, entertain you, connect you to someone oceans away, and let artificial intelligence answer almost every question in the world. If your ancestors, the people who lived tens of thousands of years ago, could see your life, they might think you were a god. And yet, there were things they did every day, so naturally they did not even need a name for them, that you, with all that power, can barely do anymore. Not because you are weaker than them, not because you are less intelligent, but because the modern world has quietly taken those abilities away from you, piece by piece, until you no longer remember you ever had them. Those abilities once helped human beings feel calmer, more connected, less empty, and more able to feel that an ordinary day had meaning. So what did your ancestors actually do all day? And what, inside those ordinary actions, can you barely do anymore? Truth number 1, they could live without turning every hour into work. You have probably heard this before. Ancient humans did not work as much as we imagine, but the important part is not simply whether they worked more or less. The deeper point is this: they did not turn every hour of the day into evidence of their worth. In 1963, anthropologist Richard Lee studied the Kung people in the Kalahari Desert. He observed how they spent their time hunting, gathering, preparing food, making tools, and resting. The results surprised many people. In some hunter-gatherer groups, the time spent on direct survival activities was far lower than the popular image of prehistoric life as constant struggle. Similar observations have appeared among other hunter-gatherer communities, such as the Hadza in Tanzania, the Ake in Paraguay, and the Martu in Australia. Of course, not every group was the same. Different environments, different seasons, different risks. But these studies suggest one important thing. Pre-agricultural life was not only endless work. They hunted, they gathered, they cooked, they repaired tools, they cared for children, they prepared for tomorrow. But when the necessary part was done, the rest of the day was not instantly filled with another list of tasks. The rest of the time, they lived. What about you? You may work 40 to 50 hours a week, not counting commuting, housework, bills, messages, notifications, and the hours of relaxation that still do not feel like real rest. Even when you're doing nothing, a voice in your head may ask, is this useful? Am I falling behind? Am I wasting time? That is something your ancestors could do that you often cannot. Stop without feeling guilty. Sociologists have described modern society as obsessed with acceleration. Hartmut Rosa argues that modern life pushes everything to move faster: production, communication, learning, travel, response time. But the faster everything becomes, the more people feel they have no time. And that is the paradox. You have more time-saving tools than any generation before you, yet you often feel as if you have less time than ever. Your ancestors had no digital calendar, no alarm clock, no productivity manager, but they had something you struggled to protect: empty spaces that did not need to be justified. And inside those empty spaces, human beings began doing the things that made us human. Truth number 2, they could read the world with their bodies. Imagine you are standing in a wide open landscape, no signs, no Google Maps, no paved road, no phone signal. Could you find your way home? If you were your ancestor, the answer might be yes. And you would not need a compass. A hunter-gatherer could read tracks on the ground the way you read a text message. A small depression in the sand could suggest that an animal passed through not long ago. A broken branch could reveal direction. A strange smell in the air could warn of changing weather. A flock of birds suddenly going silent could mean a large animal was nearby. This was not magic. It was trained knowledge. Children in hunter-gatherer communities did not learn the world by sitting in front of a board. They learned by following adults, watching, imitating, failing, correcting, listening to stories, and trying again. A child raised in that environment would come to know tracks, plants, seasons, wind, water, animals, poisons, food, and pathways as if they were part of the body. Researchers often call this local ecological knowledge. It may not be written in books, but it can be astonishingly precise because it is accumulated across generations. An older woman in a hunter-gatherer community might know hundreds of plant species. Which ones could be eaten? Which ones could treat pain? which ones could be used for dye, which ones could become poison, and which ones should never be touched. That is not primitive instinct. That is a living library. Psychologist Albert Bandura described one of the most powerful forms of human learning as observational learning. You watch someone act, you imitate, you receive feedback, you adjust. Before schools, before textbooks, before online courses, this was how knowledge survived. Your ancestors did not only know things, they knew through their eyes, ears, nose, skin, feet, memory, and attention. What about you? You also know many things, probably thousands of times more than they did. But much of your knowledge comes through screens, symbols, charts, instructions, passwords, digital maps, and search bars. You do not need to remember the way because GPS remembers for you. You do not need to read the sky because a weather app speaks for it. You do not need to remember phone numbers because the machine stores them. You do not need to know the plants around your home because the supermarket has separated food from soil. And the result? You have more information, but less felt belonging to the world. The human brain did not evolve only to process data. It evolved to orient itself inside a living environment where a sound, a smell, or a small change in light could matter. When too much of life moves into screens, your body remains here, but your attention is constantly pulled somewhere else. Your ancestors read the world before they reacted to it. You often react before you have even read the world. And that is a great loss. Truth number 3, they could turn slow time into meaning. After hunting, gathering, caring for children, and preparing food, your ancestors did not simply lie down and wait for the day to end. They did things that, through modern eyes, might look unnecessary. They shaped tools more carefully than survival demanded. They pierced shells. They carved bone. They painted cave walls. They made instruments. They told stories. They sat together. They turned slow time into culture. At Blombos Cave in South Africa, archaeologists found pierced Nassarius shells about 75,000 years old. Those shells may have been strung together as beads, worn as ornaments, or used as symbols. They did not help anyone run faster. They did not kill animals. They did not create more food. But they tell us something important. Human beings did not only want to survive, they wanted to be recognized, to belong, to become beautiful, to carry meaning. At Chauvet Cave in southern France, paintings more than 30,000 years old show horses, lions, rhinoceroses, and bison with movement and careful observation. At Hohle Fels in Germany, flutes made from bone and ivory, about 40,000 years old, show that music appeared very early in the symbolic life of Homo sapiens. Pause on that for a moment. Someone once walked into the darkness of a cave with fire shaking in their hand, not to look for food, but to leave the image of an animal on stone. Someone else held a bird bone, carved holes into it, tested the sound, adjusted it, and tried again, not to hunt, but to make music. They could do something slowly without needing it to prove its value immediately. What about you? You begin a hobby, and almost instantly a question appears. Can this make money? Will this improve me? Can I post it? Will anyone like it? Is this worth my time? You do not simply do something. You have to defend why you are doing it. Neuroscience has a term called the default mode network. It often becomes active when you are not focused on a narrow task, when your mind remembers the past, imagines the future, connects ideas, and builds the story of who you are. Research on creativity, including work by Roger Beatty and colleagues, suggests that coordination between the default network and cognitive control networks is linked to creative thinking. Put simply, your brain needs empty space to connect ideas. Your ancestors did not know the name of that network, but they had time for it to work. You often fill the silence before it has a chance to open. And when empty space disappears, creativity does not die immediately. It simply begins to suffocate. So why can't you do what they did? Not because you lack willpower, not because you are weak, and not because the old days were better. The answer lies in the environment you live in. Your ancestors lived in a world with many real dangers, but fewer artificial signals competing for their attention. When the sun went down, the day slowed. When there was nothing urgent to do, empty space appeared. When the group sat around the fire, stories began. In 2014, anthropologist Polly Wiesner analyzed 174 conversations among the Zhuhuanzi. She found that during the day, people often talked about practical matters, food, social tensions, relationships, and economic concerns. But at night, around the fire, conversation shifted toward memories, myths, absent people, laughter, and ritual. Wiesner argued that firelight talk helped expand the social imagination of human beings. In other words, darkness and slow time were not wasted parts of life. They were where experience became meaning. What about you? You live in a world that has defeated darkness. Artificial light can extend your day endlessly. Your phone fills the smallest empty spaces. Whenever you feel sad, bored, tired, lonely, or unsure what to do, there is always a screen ready to step in. The result is that you do not lack information. You lack time to digest information. You do not lack connection. You lack the kind of presence that stays long enough for connection to become belonging. You do not lack entertainment. You lack real rest. Stephen Kaplan's attention restoration theory suggests that directed attention is a resource that can become fatigued. In 2008, Mark Berman, John Jonides, and Kaplan found that memory and attention improved after participants walked in nature. In 2015, Gregory Bratman and colleagues found that a 90-minute walk in nature reduced rumination, the repetitive thinking that keeps the mind trapped. Your ancestors lived among fire, wind, trees, soil, water, darkness, and the faces of other people. You live among calendars, notifications, artificial light, goals, comparison, and signals designed to pull you out of yourself. So what you lost is not only free time. You lost the ability to let empty space become recovery, connection, and meaning. I am not going to tell you to quit your job, sell your home, and live in the forest. That is not realistic. And your ancestors did not live in paradise. They were hungry. They suffered. They lost people they loved. They feared things you are lucky not to fear every day. But in an ordinary day, they could do a few things that are becoming very difficult for you. They could stop without feeling guilty. They could read the world with their whole body. They could do something slowly without turning it into an achievement. They could sit beside others long enough for a group of people to become a community. They could listen to a story until it became memory. And they could let empty space remain empty for a while. What about you? You live in the most powerful age in human history, but maybe that very power has made some ancient abilities harder to reach than ever before. Not because you are broken, but because the world around you is too fast, too bright, too loud, and filled with too many measurements. Maybe your ancestors did not have many of the things you have, but they had a few ways of touching life that you are forgetting. So which one do you feel you have lost the most? The ability to sit still? The ability to connect? The ability to do something slowly? Or the ability to feel that an ordinary day is already meaningful enough? Leave your answer in the comments below. And if you want to keep exploring the ancient instincts still living inside you, subscribe to Who We Were. Because the real question was never only what your ancestors did all day. It was what they could still do in an ordinary day. That you, in the most powerful age humanity has ever known, have almost forgotten how to do.